They're getting away! Love harder!
We can't, sir. The men have been hurt too often.
Whoa!
Hi everyone, I'm the Broken Meeple. Win or lose, I'm going to be honest with you. And we have the first of a couple of videos here for some small games I got. This one's a bit overdue for a review, and that is Spokes from an English publisher in York, Radical 8 Games. So this is very much like, local to me, in fact. This isn't a worldwide publisher. This is a small band in York. They turn up at the Games Expo every now and again, and you might remember there was an old review I think I did for a game called Die of the Dead. It was an intriguing little dice game, just a dice chucker, random but quirky and interesting. And it had like the really unique styling of the Festival of the Dead, or whatever they call it, over in South America, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the idea is that that was something a little bit different. It looked cool. And this one is meant to be a racing game based on sort of velodrome cycling, which is meant to be up to 6 players, take 30 odd minutes, not take long at all, nice and speedy. And it uses a rondelle mechanic for how you do your movement. It's like, okay, this could be a little bit different. So let's dive in and see what's what.
Wingers, dingus, listen up.
So in Spokes, you take your turn to move your counter around, and you're trying to complete 3 laps first before anybody wins. But the way it works is that you have a little sideboard with 6 of these different spokes on it, and they come in various colours, and normally this board would have spokes in all the different ridges. I just can't be bothered to set that up right now. More on that a bit later. And the idea is that when it is your turn, you have a cube marker, which in the first turn you can put where you like, but afterwards you are then able to move it up to 3 spaces around this little wheel rondelle, effectively. But the spoke that you pass over, so if I move this another 2 spaces, I basically take the spoke off the board and essentially replace it with one that's already in front of me, providing it's on the route I want to do. So let's, for example, say I want to take this yellow off the board, right in front of my counter here. Pop this dark blue one in there. The yellow replaces the one on my wheel, so you normally start with one of each colour, but eventually, as you can see here, you end up with a myriad of different colours as the game goes on. But after doing so, you then move your counter as far as you can along a route of the same colour. So by sticking a dark blue here, I can go to here, I can go to here, I can go to here, and I can go to here. So I'm able to travel all the way around the track to that extent by getting all of those blues in a single line. Now, when you have other players on the table, if you would land on another player, you instead land behind them. You can't share the same space as a landing, but you get to flip over your slipstream tile, which is essentially a thing that you can constantly keep sort of refreshing as the game goes on. But when it's flipped, you have the ability to ignore one of the colors on your route. So, let's say I take that same route again, but I happen to have like this annoying pink in the way. Well, that's fine. As long as I've got my slipstream tile, I just flip it over and I can use the pink no matter what, and you can skip along that way. The rest of the game is basically played out in exactly the same manner. So every time you move your cube, swap a spoke with the one that you're basically on the route you're going, move your counter, next player does their turn, and you just carry on until somebody beats 3 laps. Yeah, there's not much more to say than that.
Is that it?
Yeah, that is it. And that's kind of one of the pros of this game. This game is crazy simple. I mean, this is the rule sheet, okay? This is it. Yeah, that's it. That's all the rules. And the front is the initial setup and contents page. The back of it is pretty much the variants to this game, right? And a little example bit. So really, you're just reading this. And one of those pages is the setup, and that page has the rules in it. That's it. I mean, this game is crazy easy to learn and play. So this is definitely suitable for, game cafes. Game cafes will love this. You can teach it and show it in no time at all, or you can just give it to 2 people who turn up, because not everybody likes to have a teacher when they play games. I notice this with couples when they turn up, and they just sit there. They could whip out this game and learn it in about 2 minutes, if that. It's really that straightforward. And so it's very accessible to a lot of people. The turns are usually quite snappy, but it kind of depends on that. Well, more on that in a second. Components are fairly standard. I mean, you've got these psychedelic coloured boards here. You've got some cylinder counters and a lot of these different colour spokes. One thing that is a little bit annoying is the initial setup, because the initial setup has you basically taking this bag full of spokes, all these different colour spokes, of which you are going to use every single one of them except 2. I mean, that doesn't make a huge amount of difference in the game, I find, having 2 left out, but oh well. But the idea is that you've got to get all of these set up randomly in all the different ridges that they can be before the game starts. Make sure that if you are playing this as a multiplayer, preferably with 4 or more with this, that you get everybody to chime in for this. When you play this solo, or 2 players, or even to an extent 3 players, and there's only 1 or 2 of you doing that, man, does it great. Great trying to hurry up and go, oh, set these up, oh god, there's one missing, oh, that one's slightly out, oh, put that one in there. You know, it does grind a little bit, that initial setup. You know, in fact, the setup, I swear, is probably like a quarter of the length of the game at times. It's kind of insane. But I exaggerate a little bit, but, you know, suffice to say that little bit's annoying, but the rest of it, straightforward. I mean, you get given baggies, all you got to do is give people their slipstream tile, one of each colour spoke that you've already given, and choose a country. And that's it. Away you go. Now, the turns themselves are generally quite quick, but this game does lend itself to a little bit of AP at times, because what you're essentially trying to do is not only figure out, right, I can go 1, 2 or 3 spaces on my wheel, so it's those 3 that I'm going to be swapping out. Well, what in front of me makes good use of that? And you're going to be constantly looking around at different routes, seeing what you could do, what shenanigans you could do. If somebody happens to go along your route, they might change it slightly, which might make your life easier, might make it harder. You know, you can actively sometimes stitch people up if you're either without even realizing it or purposely actually try to stitch people up. And so you do find that the execution of a turn is very quick, but you still have to put up with a little bit of downtime for everybody sort of thinking about what it is they need to do. So the game is generally quick. I mean, 30 minutes is accurate. You will get a 3 to 4 player game of this done in 30 minutes without any trouble. 5 and 6, I recommend using the variants. More on that a little bit later. But, you know, this game, and 30 minutes is, you know, while you're learning it for the first time and maybe taking it easy and having a little bit of AP, but it's possible to finish this game in kind of like 15, 20 minutes if you're going at a pretty fair pace. I mean, it's the first person across 3 laps. If one person does really well, they're going to end the game in no time at all. And if everybody's kind of neck and neck, then, well, the game is still not going to take that long to finish. It's easily one of the fastest racing games I've ever played. So kudos on that front. You know, I like the big colour wheel, moving around the different spokes and sort of deciding that, because it creates a little bit of interesting sort of decision making, because you're thinking, well, okay, yes, I can move really far if I use this particular colour this turn, but you got to look at the ever-changing map, because everybody's mucking around with these colours, and you start off with one of each colour, but very quickly you'll start losing colours. Like on this setup here, I've got green, blue, 2 yellow and 2 white. So I don't have any pink, and I don't have any dark blue at this point. So if there's an area on the board that uses a lot of those colours and it's a long route, well, I need to get one on my wheel and make sure that I'm actually it's in front of my cube marker. Otherwise, I can't benefit from this long route. Well, does that mean I should take a worse turn now just by swapping out a dark blue onto my thing so I can actually have it prepped for later? Or do I just ignore that route and try and focus on the other colours? You know, it's a nice little bit of decision making there. And very often you're going to be hearing voices from people going, why have I got no pinks? You know, or something. You know, they want to have a colour on their wheel, and because of what they've done, they've realised they've kind of painted themselves into a corner by having too few colours on their spokes wheel. Now, you can only move up to 3 spaces, so you've only got limited choices there. But, you know, it's quite cool how the map does change up the game quite a bit, you know, in terms of like what the randomization of all the spokes are and what people do, because people will typically, as the game goes on, create these long mammoth routes with certain colors. They might stick around on the table for quite a while, and you're kind of thinking, well, can I capitalize off it again when I go back round another lap, or is it going to get broken apart by then? And I should think, well, now green's starting to be a focus here. I should probably think about getting green and preparing for that. You might even deliberately take a nasty route just to flip your slipstream tile, because flipping this is crazy useful at times, so it's certainly worth doing that. So there's a nice little bit of depth here without being overly complicated with the rules. The one little bit of rules that's maybe a little bit fiddly to explain is how the kind of like adrenaline burst rule works, but they do give, you know, a decent amount of examples in the book, and if you just kind of read it carefully, you will get it fine, not a problem. You've got a few variants in the game as well, because you might be thinking, oh Christ, you know, if I play this with 6 players, this is going to drag on like crazy. Well, yes, if you play this with 5 or 6 individual players, I don't recommend that. The game does drag beyond 30 minutes at that point, and the AP factor can be insane because you just will not be able to make a decision on your turn until it gets knit closer, and all that time you're waiting. The variants, though, help with this. So if you've got 4 and 6 players, you can play a team mode. So you're on different teams. Now, this can help you to, confer a little bit, you sit and alternate. You've kind of got a little bit of like, all right, I'm focusing on them, but it doesn't speed the game up dramatically because you're still individual players at the end of the day, but it does make it a little bit easier for you to sort of go, well, I'm helping him. Only one of us has to get past our 3rd lap. So I can sacrifice myself for the greater good. It kind of works that way. The 2-bike variant with 2 and 3 players. So if you've got very few players and you think there's not enough counters on the board, you can play with 2 bikes. Pretty straightforward. You have 2 bikes. You just basically have effectively 2 boards and 2 separate like spoke wheels. You move 2 bikes and one of them has to get past the lane in front. So again, it can work at all player counts just fine. The solo mode's more of a kind of a puzzle game. You effectively start on the starting line, where is it in this case, like there, and the idea is that you are trying to complete 3 laps in what is effectively 12 spokes, so effectively not that many turns. So each time that you take spokes off the board now, you're kind of diminishing your choices, but you're trying to do the 3 laps in a set number of turns. An interesting little puzzle, and certainly I think there's going to be a fan of those out there. For me, I found it quite tricky to actually win that much with it. It seemed quite difficult at times, and the way the board is set up has a bit of an influence on that. I mean, the board might be set up in a way that the 12 turns just make themselves obvious to you, but then there might be another time where the board is so randomized and so skewed all over the place that you find it difficult to actually move at all. So it's a little bit on the random side as to whether the stars align for you or not. But this isn't a game that I feel like I'd want to play by myself. It's cool that the variant's in there and it can appeal to some, but honestly, I feel that this is a game best suited for around 4 players. 4 players is probably my sweet spot overall. 3 is fine, but I recommend that if you play this with 2 or 3, you use the 2-bike variant. I don't think there's enough stuff on the board happening with only 3 of your markers. You kind of need, especially not 2. You've got to play the 2-bike variant with 2 of you. That's just too few things. You need 4 things going on. 4 players is a good, sweet spot for the game. 6, you can at least play with a team variant, so you can pair up into teams and, have a bit of fun that way. But 6 is going to drag the game out beyond the 30-minute mark at times, and 5 is, well, funny enough, right out. Yeah, 5 is not a recommended, variant for this, because you can't use the 2-bike variant, and you can't use the team variant, because it has to be even numbers. So 5 is the outlier. You have to play 5 individual players, and it's going to take a while because everybody's acting for themselves, trying to stitch each other up, and it's waiting for other players' turns. So it's not my sweet spot there. But the game can scale pretty well across the counts for most people. I think you're going to have your pick of the run as to which player count you want, whether you're always playing this 2 or 3, always playing it 5 or 6, and you'll get something out of it. The game itself is an enjoyable one, but it's nothing, I wouldn't say it was like a groundbreaking, oh yeah, I want to play this all the time. Once I've played 1 game of this, I feel like I'm kind of done. I don't feel like I want to, I know it ends very quickly, but after it's ended pretty quickly, I feel like, yeah, I'm good, that's fine. That being said, it's very easy to reset this. I mean, you literally just collect up your single spokes on this wheel, and then you just leave the board as it was. There you go. That random setup is now the new starting map. It can work pretty nicely if you want to play game after game. For me, though, this one is one that I would play every now and again. It does the job. It is very simple to learn, very easy to teach. It is quick to play. I mean, it can drag a bit with 5 or 6 players, but 4 or less, you are talking a 30-minute timer, possibly even less. And it's got variants to, justify for the different player counts. There's just a little bit too much AP that can be caused as you're trying to think about, where you want to go as well as how you're going to stitch somebody up. There are sometimes runaway leader moments where you can figure out 2 turns before the end, yeah, there's no way we can physically stop this guy. It's just not going to happen. So I'm kind of just going for 2nd place here. He's just going to win. That can be a little off-putting. But overall, it's just a nice, cheap, little racing game that does what it says on the tin. The tin might not be fancy. It's You know, it's a bit like buying, you know, chopped tomatoes at the supermarket or something. You know, you can buy the fancy smancy chopped tomatoes. They'll probably taste nice and sweet, be really nice, but probably too expensive and more than you need. This is kind of like the smart price, you know, Lidl's value chopped tomatoes. They do exactly what they say on the tin. They taste just fine. It's just not going to blow your brains out. You know, it's like pretty decent enough.
What the hell are you talking about?
So I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. I recommend it. It's one that I probably recommend a lot to game cafes. You should definitely pick this one up for your club. Stick it in your library because it's super quick, super easy, and it's going to appeal on that front. You know, you can pretty much just dump the game on people in your store and let them go at it if they want. You know, it won't take them very long at all. And it's got a cool, like, psychedelic cover, and it looks, you know, colourful on the board. So it's got that appeal factor as well. So 7 out of 10. It's a good real racing game. I think I'd rather play stuff like Heat, probably automobiles, you know, maybe Downforce, that kind of thing. But, you know, all in all, this one does what it says on the tin and does it well.
Isn't that lovely?
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on Board Game Geek, thumb it up on YouTube, share it out on the internet, get it out on Facebook, let my face be seen by many on Facebook, even if most people don't want to see it. And also, let me know your comments down below. Have you had a chance to play this, maybe at the UK Games Expo, because they have been kind of prototyping it for a while? Have you had a chance to play a recent release copy? Then by all means, share your thoughts. What do you think of it? Particularly, what do you think of the different variants in there? The team mode, the 2-bike mode, and the solo mode. Be interesting to get your thoughts on that one. Until next time though, remember, it's only a game, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. Take care everyone.